Hello, Robert, and welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. How are you?
Hi, Vicky. Thank you for inviting me. All good here. Thank you. Excited for this interview.
Yes, Robert, me too. And we just met recently through the Entrepreneurs Fest 2021, which was an amazing event organized by different entrepreneurship facilitators all around Australia. And I really enjoyed the webinar that you gave, and you were obviously the guest speaker. And I really connected, um, I think, with the mindset that you have, and also with the focus on productivity, efficiency.
Yes,
So I want to learn more about, and also I'm super grateful that you accepted this interview so we can share with other people as well.
sure. Sounds
Oh,
awesome.
awesome. So my first question, Robert,
Well, yeah, and I can certainly think about all kinds of milestones that shaped my career throughout. Because one thing that I'm glad about when I look 30 years back is that I've been on every part of the life cycle of a product, from the idea, the research, the development, managing, to marketing, sales, production. Not necessarily me doing the work, but certainly interacting with the people doing it and learning the other perspectives and all that. And I immigrated from Israel 7 years ago, and perhaps graduating there and going to uni, there's lots of presence of big companies there. So basically, I started at the age of 18 working for Intel as a junior software student, if you want, not an engineer yet even. This was just my first year in uni. And shortly after that, I was exposed to a project that, that basically was worth $30 million for the company. It was an internal project to make the production process more efficient, meaning doing more testing on the chip development. The Pentium was developed back then in Haifa, where I live. So as a, almost teenager still at 19, 20, being exposed to such a lucrative project, global, basically working with people from Intel all around the world. That was quite an experience that I would say shaped my engineering perspective and fueled the excitement about it as well. And then I would say, maybe I'll mention two other milestones that I could think of. One was when I wanted to move from being an engineer to managing teams and projects. I had the opportunity to go to, I was working in a medical device company, and I was sent to one of the events. It's called the UGW. It's a big annual event for gastroenterology that has to do with the and just being there, interacting with real clients that come to the booth, sitting during the day with marketing and salespeople and listen to their chat, interacting with them about the latest product we developed in R&D and what they think about it, and hearing their perspectives. That was an amazing experience. I think I got lucky to be involved in such a thing right at the beginning, as I was moving from being an engineer to a manager, and seeing the difference, how engineers think and how other people think. Sales people have their agenda, marketing people have their agenda, the board has their problems. Everyone's trying to push things to their side, and it's a huge elephant. Everyone's just looking at a small, tiny piece of it. That was quite fascinating to learn. And perhaps a third event is when I actually came to Australia 7 years ago. That scenery of that full ecosystem, from research to engineering to production, marketing, sales, all that. We see that a lot here in Australia, but it's kind of in silos. There are engineering consultancies, there are marketing agencies, there are production facilities. They are not under the same umbrella. I don't know, think Cochlear, maybe that's quite a unique example here in Australia. You don't have much of those companies that own the product, own the process, own the production, own the sales, the whole life cycle of a product. So I kind of missed that when I came here. I ended up working with engineering consultancies, So if you have a bag of money and the idea, you come and the engineers will do the prototype for you, and then it's your problem to produce it, sell it, customer support, all that. But then from my experience of over 20 years before I came here, I started to see the limitation doing that. Just from that very narrow prism, if you want. And that's kind of shaped where I am today, I would say. 2 years ago, I decided I want to focus on this, on creating this umbrella for businesses, if you want. So I started Go Viable as an advisor, which means I work with people who want to develop products, but on the full life cycle of the product, not just the engineering side or just the marketing side or the production side, but the whole journey, if you want. Trying to see the big picture and then going to the details all together and backing it up with success. And I'm sure we'll talk about examples. It's kind of a recipe to make the next success as well. So, you know, we all hear about learning from failure and how important it is. And throughout my career, 30 years, I would say we can also learn from success. It's not a shame to learn from success. And if you learn from success, you basically can aim to do it right the first time. You'll have obstacles, of course, you'll have hiccups, but at least they'll be part of your plan. And you know that they're coming, so to speak. They are like, I like to call them controlled snowballs. Okay. You know, when you have a snowball down the cliff, they start getting momentum. And the longer you leave them, the longer they'll squash you down there. So if you know they're coming and if you plan for them, then you can tackle them at the right time with the right energy, so to speak. And then they are part of your journey, not obstacles that are gonna squish you, so to speak, again. So get it right the first time is really about that learning from success and building a plan from knowledge. Because many times I talk to people and it's kind of, they don't know what they don't know. And then there's need to educate and tell them, yes, I understand that this is the engineering view, but what about production? I understand this is the production view, but what about marketing? What about customer support? What about your business? Is it going to succeed? All these questions, they become like cogs, if you want, or even better, like a relay race. It's not you do engineering and then you move to production and then you move to marketing and then you move to sales and then you move to customer support. If you think about it as steps, then I'd like to think about it like a relay race, you know, where the runners run and at some point they run together until they hand over the relay and then the next phase continue running. And I've seen lots of examples where the engineering had this awesome prototype on the table, but for production it was a nightmare. Like, I don't know, one example I think from, I was working on this capsule endoscopy project back in Israel. It's basically a capsule with a camera, you swallow it, and it makes a video of your digestive tract. It's wow. Yes. And in one of the products that was like one of the versions that improved, the engineering was so happy with their outcome, let's put it that way, and production were so miserable because it was as simple as trying to glue the two parts together. And the mold that was used by the R&D wasn't good enough for production purposes, and production wasn't involved back enough in time. So they ended up having piles of capsule sides that they had to glue together. And okay, these two stick, let's put them in that pile, and these two stick, which is quite a nightmare.
Yeah, it sounds like a nightmare.
Yes. Whereas if they were involved right up front together working, then as again, that relay example, then this would have been avoided. So I heard many times in my life the word luck, and then that kind of what pushed me to where I am today. Like, I can't be lucky 30 times, you know, and 30 times is the number of products I put out there in the market. There must be something else beyond luck.
Totally.
I had really an extraordinary streak of luck for 30 years. So, yeah, I mean, and just recently, maybe I just engaged with someone. I engage with lots of people all the time, but maybe one thing that caught my eye there was they already had a prototype. They could sell it. They thought it's not awesome yet. It's not perfect yet. And they were asking me how could they prepare for the next phase and how much money do they need, where do they get that money? And I did that with them. Again, this was like only 2-hour discussion. In 2 hours, we could look at, okay, what is the next step for you and how could you do it and how fast you can achieve it and how much cost and revenue and all that. But then I couldn't step back and say, but rather than go now for $300,000 journey and wait 1-2 years, and they were building something for COVID, and who knows what changes in COVID in 1 year or 2 years, you have something now. Maybe it's not the best, but you can push it. Maybe for even less price, but you'll have a baseline of a market. You can tell them that you're building the next awesome thing, and you'll have the client for your next product as well. So it's kind of a win-win. I don't see any lose in this kind of situation. Just print more of those and try to start selling them. We can keep talking about the next phase anyway, but don't miss the opportunity.
That's so interesting. Yeah, and I think that's connected with the concept of perfection that sometimes we have.
Yes.
That we want like the perfect product, the perfect service,
Yes.
and we are missing, as you said, the opportunity to sell
Yes.
what we have right now.
Yes, I would say maybe one of the most recurring themes is what's the next step?
Wow. Okay.
What now? You know, and how to be efficient when doing that next step. But that's kind of the superficial question, if you want. I mean, this is what maybe on the mind of people when we engage, like they are trying to choose between this or that, or they know they want to get there, but not sure what's the next step or steps to get there. So that's where the conversation starts. But it's like an iceberg, and this is the tip of the iceberg. And my bottom of that iceberg is what's the problem you're trying to solve. So I try always to steer the conversation to that space. And the problem eventually should encompass, to me, at least 3 things. What's the technology being used, and is it the most relevant or best technology to use? And using the latest and greatest, not necessarily always the best thing to do. But that's could probably be just a whole discussion on itself. So apart from technology, there's the whole market question, obviously. Where is the market? Did you engage with the market? Is the market ready? Do they want it? Do they want something else? And the most missed part, I would say, is what about the business? I mean, eventually it's about creating a business. That product or service is a business. If it doesn't make money, nothing is going to happen. So how is the business going to thrive and survive? So that kind of my holy triangle, if you want, the technology, the market, and the business. And then under that, what's the problem? What's the solution? What's the product or service? And then what are the next steps so that, you know, it's like, I like the analogy of a GPS. You say, I'm here and I want to get there. And then the GPS tell you, okay, this is the best option. The GPS behind the scenes go and look the whole map of Australia maybe and find, okay, this is the best route. But it looked at millions of data points to make that decision, ignoring most of it at the end, but still taking it into account at the beginning. Very maybe cool. Another teasing quote I have, apart from get it right the first time, is every MVP should make money.
Wow, that's so true.
And that's usually what I try to aim the next step to. I mean, if you can't make money with it, maybe it's not the right step. Maybe it's something is missing. Maybe it's being under-evaluated, your next step.
Wow.
And I can give probably lots of examples here. You know what, maybe one, sorry. This was a product. I'll just mention it was a product that's aimed for big corporates without going into the industry.
Of course.
But the strategy there was, and that was just the solution without going into too much detail. Let's go to one of the biggest players in the market, show them why the technology that we have makes sense, create a product they can actually use. Basically, we wanted to create something based on AI to help those companies make decisions. But in order to make the AI work, you need data, and we don't have the data. So our first MVP then was to create the product that collects the data. but also that adds value because by collecting the data, those companies collect the data, but the way you do it now, it was by hard, laborious work through people that are employed and collect it manually. So this MVP could help them automate that process, still without AI, but the automation was there, so productivity was already achieved, even without the AI. So then when we engaged with that big player, they funded the MVP because it made sense. They hired the MVP because it helped their teams be more productive. We collected the data to develop the AI of the next phase. Win-win-win-win, any 360 degrees, and made money on the way because they hired the product from us. So that's kind of when I see, okay, this is a great MVP. Let's go for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think that's a good slogan to have. Like, let's make money right from the start, because if it doesn't make money, it's because, as you said, something is missing, or perhaps we are one step ahead and we are like trying to to do something that probably is not the first step. That's really good. I'm learning heaps already. Thank you, Robert. Thank you. That's pretty awesome.
Pleasure. This is a big question, and I'll try to be concise here. Look, the 70% is backed with the dollar number as well. I just thought it's too scary to put it on the first page on our website. But according to HBR, it was the PMI Pulse, the Project Management Institute. They released a report 2 years ago. The number is actually $2 trillion a year, 2 trillion. So $2 trillion go down the drain. This is money put and never see the light of the market.
Wow.
That's the other side of that coin of 70% failure or delay, if you want.
Sounds more in dollars.
Yes, that's USD dollars, yes.
Wow.
Yes, unfortunately. And many think, like, there's the other horrendous statistic about 90% of startups fail. And I bring the 70% because it talks about the whole industry, not just startups. Just startups are more, and SMEs are more vulnerable than others. Like Google killed Google Plus 2 years ago and killed Google Glasses a few years back. Not that they don't care, but it was just a nudge in their revenue model and in their journey, right? They are a huge company that could allow themselves to scatter money on failure from time to time. When a startup or an SME have just this one product and it goes down the drain, then that's it. It's the end of the line. It's life or death, really. And that's why the problem is more acute for SMEs and startups. So almost half of the products that come from startups don't meet the market need. And interestingly enough, I've been putting on my webinars a question, why do you think startups fail? And everyone guesses it's because of not meeting market needs. Still, it's 50% why startups fail. So it's kind of, we know about it, but we don't know what to do with it, kind of thing. The other thing that actually was mentioned in that report I mentioned earlier was the difference between champion teams and underperforming teams. And they found that the difference is 21 times difference. So a good team that know what they're doing, and that doesn't mean that they are technically good. They are really good with the big picture, helping the business. They know what they're doing. They achieve the outcomes, yes, in time and budget, but not just on time and budget. They are delivering the desired outcome for the market, for the business. So those teams are 20 times more efficient than underperforming teams, 20 times that 2,000%, right? When you convert it to percentages. And I don't know of any tool. I mean, people talk about Agile and Waterfall and Six Sigma, and we can talk about all kinds of tools. I don't think any of them is promising 2,000% improvement. And it boils down to people, basically, in that regard. So again, it's that question of how do you align the technology and its teams, the market and its teams, the business and its teams to work together and create that successful product in a successful business to avoid that kind of sour failed journey. Know what you don't know
Okay.
Because we start usually working from what we know. If I'm a technical founder, I start building the app. If I'm a marketing guy, I'll start with my market validation and forget about the technology and whether it helps. In both cases, they'll miss the business opportunity. So know what you don't know to manage your journey. For example, I work a lot with the medtech space. This is kind of my sweet spot, if you want.
Okay.
In Australia, there was a recent report this year talking about the big gaps in medtech in Australia. So not understanding the regulatory process, because you have to go to the TGA or the FDA, depending on the country you want to sell, and get approval. And most startups in Australia, according to that report, don't know enough about regulation. I also say it when I work with medtech companies, I ask them, what's your classification for the TGA or the FDA? And they don't know. And it's kind of a no-brainer. You can't even start developing without knowing the answer to that. And they don't know why it's important. The other gap was project management. So just those, like if you're a startup in the medtech space and you don't have a strong project manager, you don't have a regulatory strategy, you're already doomed to fail. So it's no secret, but we kind of don't put the focus on it. Innovation is not easy. Innovation is difficult. It's costly. Lots of dollars go down the drain. And if it were, I always keep saying, if it were easy, you could go and buy it. You don't have to develop it. So the fact that you need to develop it, that's where innovation starts. It means there's no solution out there. You are creating something from nothing. Maybe on top of previous knowledge, but still, you're creating something new. So that's kind of a challenge. And that new will not come from automatic things, will not come from robots or machines. It will come from people. You need their innovation, their commitment, their passion, with everything that makes us human. And without that, it's not going to work. And communication there basically is the key, I would say. People either don't communicate, understand each other, and I don't know in which industry you came from, but it's known that engineers don't communicate well with managers. God knows, even when I was a consultant with the engineering consultancies, I would hesitate taking an engineer with me to meet a client because they could just say something that would scare a client or give them false hope or whatever, because they just focus on the technical problem, not the big picture of it. So then how do you align? And I like that word, alignment, between the different people that are involved in the business. Salespeople who care about their bottom line and their fees when they sell, and their deadline, because if the sales started their campaign that they're going to sell with, I don't know, each industry has its own deadlines, but even think about it like a fashion industry where they have, I don't know, the spring thing is coming out, and you can't say, I'm going to be late by a month. The industry and the market will not wait, right? So same happens for IT salespeople. They have their campaigns and they have their deadlines and they have their forecast for the CEO that if we start selling in June, this is what you get. And suddenly the engineers say, yeah, but if we just make these awesome features, it will be just only 1 month or only 1 week late, and they wouldn't see the implication. And the same would go to the other side, that would just keep asking for the engineers to do things without understanding that it's going to make the bill bigger. And this is just one of the interactions that could happen in a business and communication, let alone about how to manage change. And if we agreed on something formally or informally, how do we address it when things go wrong? All that. If people are not managed properly, then it's not going to work. What is really the problem you're trying to solve, not just what's the requirement? Because otherwise you wouldn't be able to suggest a proper solution. So as I said, I started Go Viable almost 2 years ago, just before COVID started.
Wow, well done.
Thank you. But it was already in the planning, already in the making. So I went, and I'm still passionate about it. So I would say, probably the basic service, just to summarize it, it's about creating the confidence strategy and roadmap for any business. So it's about creating a successful commercialization for a product or a service that aligns the technology and the market and the business. And achieving that is by creating optimized milestones that add confidence, so that with every milestone you say, yes, I am closer to the target, rather than just a checklist of milestones that are not correlated, so to speak. And as you mentioned earlier, I'm also a big fan on improvements and productivity and simplifying processes. So I love to create work processes that add value, not just tick the box exercise, so to speak. And the way I love to engage, and usually I do it with clients, is simply by I offer like very simple 2 modes of work. One mode is the workshop, and it could be a couple of hours or half a day or a couple of days, but usually it's in that range. So it's kind of very intense time together to see where things are now, where should they be going, and what's the GPS route to get there, and create that confident strategy and roadmap and processes. And the other mode is the ongoing relationship. So basically, with some clients, I just engage once a week or twice a month. So we engage for 1-2 hours to plan the journey for the next few weeks. Again, based on or backed with the end goal and the big picture roadmap, but it's more about the ongoing activities and making sure that the implementation is working. You can find me on LinkedIn. And people come to learn and engage, so I love it.
Yeah, no, well done. And we're going to put the link, obviously, to your LinkedIn in this video as well. So for people that want to connect with you, they can do it. And yeah, no, I really, really appreciate your time and your knowledge. And we hope that this video also serve other business owners in that journey, right? To develop the products and services. So thank you so much, Robert. And yeah, all the best. And I'm looking forward to catch up next time.
Thank you, Vicky.